So I opened my eyes this morning to a text from my brother telling me that Paul George and Kawhi are on the Clippers. That's the first thing I see when I wake up today. Like, are you kidding me? I didn't even believe him, people. I didn't even believe him. I messaged him. Paul George isn't a free agent. Like, how did they get him? And once again, Oklahoma City, Sam Presti trades Paul George for uh, Shai Alexander and Danilo Gallinari and a bunch of picks that don't even apply uh, because they're so far down the road, like 2023, 2026. Like, these are seasons that are way too far ahead. Westbrook's, he's going to be at his best the next couple seasons. He's not going to be at his best in 5 freaking seasons. So, like, it's just chalk it up another player on the board that Oklahoma City trades. We drafted, there's a video on this channel where I talk about how they're the dumbest franchise. Despite being my favorite team, they're the dumbest franchise of all time, basically. They drafted, three MVP players in succession. You get KD, then you get Westbrook, then you get Harden in 3 consecutive drafts. And all these players turn out to win MVP awards. And now you get Paul George in a trade last year, and he signs an extension with you guys. He doesn't even meet with other teams. So we have Paul on a 4-year deal. Yesterday Paul was on a 4-year deal with our team, and now he's gone. He finished top 3 in MVP voting. He was second in the league in points per game at 28 points per game. He was in the Defensive Player of the Year running. Like, Paul George had a great season. He was extremely valuable to our team. And now he's gone. Now we have freaking trash Danilo Gallinari and a bunch of picks that we can't use. So at this point, I'm torn. What makes more sense? Should the Thunder, I don't even trust the organization anymore at this point. At this point, Russ just needs to, I hate to say it, but he needs to request a trade like everybody else does. You see Kyrie requesting trades. You got Kawhi requesting trades. You got Paul George requesting trades. You got AD requesting trades. You got every player in the league is basically doing whatever they want to do. They're controlling, like, usually you see players with a year on their contract left, like, that's when they request a trade. Not when you have like 4 more years in Paul George's case, and literally overnight this trade happens. So at this point, like, Oklahoma City has they've lost players of the likes of Durant, Harden, Paul George, even Serge Ibaka, a solid player. You had Carmelo Anthony, he's gone. Like, it doesn't make any sense why they can't hang on to any of these players. Like, especially, why trade Paul George to a team like the Clippers, who you have to battle in the West? Like, the Spurs traded freaking Kawhi Leonard to the East as far away as they could. Like, obviously, they're basically giving Paul George, they're honoring his request. They traded him to his target destination. So Russ needs to make a list of a few teams. We're going to talk about some teams shortly. And he needs to get traded to another team that has another good player. All these other players have duos. So it's he needs to get on a team that has a duo. And there is a few situations out there that I think could arguably be an upgrade from Paul George and Westbrook. I don't like the Miami Heat situation because Jimmy Butler is basically a lesser version of Paul George. He's a lesser version of guys like Kawhi and Paul George and stuff. He's not on their level. So that's a complete downgrade. Duos that make sense or trades that make sense, rather. Since Oklahoma City clearly has no interest in winning a title this year based on how they handled their team. You offer the Rockets, see if you can get, the Rockets should offer Chris Paul straight up for Russell Westbrook. James Harden's fed up with Chris Paul's production. He's only 15 points a game, but his contract is huge, which is key in acquiring a dude like Westbrook. Westbrook's the highest paid player in the league, basically, but his contract will match with Chris Paul. So now you have a reunion of Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Anything D'Antoni was trying to get Chris Paul to do, Westbrook can do better. He's way more athletic. He'll shoot better this year. Last year, Russ missed all of training camp because of he had surgery. So basically, all he could do was cardio related things, stamina related things. Because if you watch Westbrook play, the thing that his game demands most is conditioning. Um, and his shot was improving throughout the season. He shot a career low in free throws this year in threes, but he's been in the league over a decade. He's a career, you know, freaking 82% free throw shooter. Um, we've seen his caliber of shooting. He doesn't usually shoot that low. If this guy goes through a full training camp, like if he just needs to shoot his normal percentage from the free throw line like he has the last 10 years and make an extra 3-point shot, and that's going to, you know, increase his production to 27, 28 points a game just off a couple open free throws and one more open shot. So his offense is going to be fine with a full training camp. So you can dump Chris Paul off in Oklahoma City to raise all the young babies on the team, basically. Since Chris Paul can't play at a level that James Harden would demand. But the thing that's interesting about the reunion of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, one, it makes sense. James Harden needs an upgraded partner, and Russ needs a partner now. So you put them back together. Now you have those two with all the Rockets shooters everywhere. You have Capella getting rebounds. And the interesting thing about this duo is that one, it would be better than Russ and Paul George as a duo. And there's a couple rare qualities about a Westbrook Harden duo that I want to talk about here. So obviously it would be a duo where it'd be the only duo in the league where you have a duo of both players being MVP winners. That's number one. Number two, you would have a duo that has the only two players in NBA history to be players who can win scoring titles and also lead the league in assists per game. Westbrook's done this twice. Harden's had 1 year where he led the league in assists per game and won a scoring title with it. So that's rare qualities right there. You're going to have two guards who are scoring champion / double-digit assist guards on the same team, diming everywhere on the Houston Rockets. I think that would be the best case scenario for the Thunder, for Russell Westbrook. Another trade is Westbrook for Ben Simmons. One, Philly is in the East. Two, I like some of their pieces. I like Joel Embiid. They have a 28-a-game player on the team. In addition, with Harris and you'd have Westbrook there, who's infinitely better than Ben Simmons. And then Oklahoma City would get a young player with the money would match up. They'd get a dude for their rebuild in Ben Simmons. But I would still rather have the Bucks over Philadelphia because, like the Rockets, the duo of Russ and Giannis would also be a duo that both players in the duo have won MVP awards. Like last year, you had Steph and KD on the same team. You have two MVPs on the team. You're going to be practically impossible. You're going to be very competitive, to say the least. And, you could argue that Giannis being the MVP winner, that you could argue he's better than Paul George. I'm sure there's still people who would pick Paul George over him because Paul George can shoot the ball, and he's just a different animal. Like, they're both unique in their own right. But nonetheless, Giannis has some, he's a rare, unique player. You'd have a great, the best duo in Milwaukee since, Oscar Robertson and Kareem, that they had that one time. So you got Russ, the new Oscar, and you got, Giannis, who's a generational talent like a Kareem. And obviously, Oscar and Russ are generational talents as well. So that's the Bucks are, another situation. If Russ could play with Giannis or play with James Harden, I would consider both of those duos superior than just Russ and Paul George because of the just the elements you have there, especially James Harden's case. He's not as good of a defender as Paul George, obviously, but he's way more dynamic on the offensive end in terms of the scoring and playmaking. Paul George can score the ball, but James Harden can run the point guard position. And I think a D'Antoni system with two MVP caliber guards in Russ and James Harden would be the upgrade that the Rockets would need to compete there. But out of all those trades, personally, if I could pick, I'd probably pick Houston because I want to take a crack at the Clippers Now that Paul George said no, he wants to go over there. If Russ can get on James Harden's team, I want to see, an upgraded Rockets team. They'd be no joke with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, out there. That's a scary, scary duo. A 36 a game player and a triple double guard who've played together before with D'Antoni. You got the shooting everywhere, and with Westbrook on the team, you're gonna get way more drives to the rim. Westbrook's way more improved than Chris Paul. Chris Paul's basically washed. Dennis Schroeder off OKC's bench averages just as many points as Chris Paul did this season. Not to mention, Chris Paul's about to be 35, Westbrook's 30, so he's a lot younger in terms of his NBA mileage and stuff. Usually in the NBA, dudes' primes are like 25, 26 to like 31, 32. That age range is generally the best range, which is what makes the Clippers extremely scary because obviously you have Kawhi and Paul George. Both these dudes are like 28, 29, I think 28. So you have, they're at the point in their career where the gap they're as close to LeBron in terms of their ability as they've ever been at this point. LeBron, obviously, he's an amazing, amazing player. He time doesn't seem to affect him like other stars, but nonetheless, those dudes are at the age now, like when LeBron was in Miami. When he was at his absolute physical peak, like that's where Kawhi and Paul are at right now. So they're gonna really, LeBron's gonna be pushed, against those dudes. I'm glad they got, Anthony Davis. So it's even ground, like it's an even Steven ground. Both those duos are extremely talented. There's really it's a coin flip almost, because and the Clippers actually have the best odds right now because of that reason. You have the best two-way wings in the NBA. LeBron doesn't play defense like those dudes anymore because he's a little older, but LeBron's a playmaker and those dudes aren't. So the gap is kind of evened out with that. But still, like, it's going to be difficult to deal with a team like that, which is why Russ needs to get on the Rockets so you can have a unique duo of scoring champion / assist leaders, the only two players to ever do that multiple times. So that's an element they can bring to the table. And, I have confidence that D'Antoni could, draw out some more offense. Like, if you give D'Antoni two scoring champions, it's going to be an interesting look to that team. Because the Rockets were good enough to where people thought they could beat the Warriors as they were. So, in an upgraded Rockets team, if you insert Westbrook, you sub out Chris Paul, an upgraded version of that, that's more dynamic, should be, they should be right up there with the Lakers and Clippers if they can add Westbrook to their team, upgrade Chris Paul. But that'll be our first, video. We'll have some more videos, but man, just caught me off guard. I never thought we would lose a dude who's under contract for 4 years. Anyways, come on, Sam Presti. Later, guys.